What's up, guys? Thank you for stepping into Agartha. And in this video, we're going to go over types of consensus mechanisms and what even is consensus anyways, and why is it important with blockchain and cryptocurrency. So starting off with a recap, a synopsis. So a consensus mechanism is a fault tolerance mechanism. It's used in computer and blockchain systems to achieve the necessary agreement or consensus on a single data value or a single state of the network, such as with cryptocurrencies. So blockchains and cryptocurrencies tied together, types of consensus mechanisms, just ways to validate single data or reach consensus that a block is genuine, authentic, and they allow the transaction to go through. So what is consensus mechanisms useful for? So it's useful in record keeping and among other things. On the Bitcoin blockchain, we're going to take an example. For instance, the consensus mechanism is known as proof of work. So proof of work requires an exertion of computational power in order to solve a difficult but arbitrary puzzle in order to keep all of the nodes in the network honest. So the way transactions on Bitcoin get validated and reach consensus or an agreement that transaction details are true and genuine, then they do this process of reaching consensus by doing proof of work. So you have all these node operators, or just computers basically, that are solving through this software or code this arbitrary puzzle. And it's a difficult puzzle, and it gets more difficult with more computational power you put into it. So if one of those node operators or those Bitcoin miners solve that arbitrary puzzle, then that block is then distributed out to all the other nodes on the network. They reach a consensus that is true, it's genuine, and then the transaction goes through, and then that block is added on to the string of other blocks, making it a blockchain. So that's how the Bitcoin network consensus or agreements are reached, and for transactions to be able to go through and for the network to be secured. So the consensus mechanism validates the transactions, it secures the network, it makes sure that all the node operators are honest on the network, and that is providing genuine data or feedback to the whole entire system. So in other words, consensus mechanisms represent protocols that make sure all nodes on the blockchain are synchronized with each other and they come to consensus, or basically they just agree on which transactions can be added onto the blockchain. And it makes sure everybody is following the same rules and decides what their contribution is. So it's a way of establishing trust and agreements autonomously through software, through computer code, via blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies. So there are all different types of consensus mechanisms. You have proof of work up here. You got proof of stake, proof of history. You got federated Byzantine agreement. You got proof of so many, proof of everything, proof of proof at this point. But the key takeaway you want to know is without a consensus mechanism, it can face several attacks, the blockchain network. So you need a way to reach consensus and be in full agreement for all the node operators to have a secure network, or it's going to face several attacks. And there's one attack called the 51% attack. So if a miner or a node operator gets 51% of the computational or hash power of that, then they could kind of alter some of the blockchain or the data on there, and they could issue like a double spending thing where, hey, now there's 42 million Bitcoins, not 21 million. And that could really crush the network. So it's very important to understand proof of work, proof of stake, proof of history, all these consensus mechanisms, why they're important, because that's how we're going to know which cryptocurrencies to get in on or which ones to forget about. So having a strong, bulletproof consensus mechanism, a scalable one, is so crucial to have for a cryptocurrency, because it could face several attacks, 51% attacks, they call it, if they don't have a solid consensus mechanism. So very important to know the different consensus mechanisms and the risks and opportunities that come with them. So proof of work involves solving cryptographic puzzles in order to create new blocks on the blockchain. So Bitcoin uses proof of work, Dogecoin uses proof of work, Litecoin uses proof of work. Proof of work requires a big sum of energy because of mining. So think about how miners used to mine gold and still do today in the ground. It's just like same thing, but on a computer. It's software doing it autonomously. So it's digitally mining these blocks to solve the puzzle, and then transactions get validated and they're secured that way. It's in charge of verifying the transactions organizing them, and making sure the whole network knows there was a new block created. So proof of stake is the second consensus mechanism. So it was like first proof of work, then there's proof of stake, and now there's a bunch of them. And we're not going to dive into all of them, but there's a bunch. So proof of stake is a more eco-friendly option because it does not involve high energy consumption like proof of work does, all that computational power and energy. So proof of stake relies on the idea that if an investor owns multiple cryptocurrency or tokens in a network, they will have a high interest in keeping the network safe and having that coin hold that high value. If you're new to crypto, or if you've been in crypto for a while and you still don't feel like you have a strategy, then we have the perfect thing for you, because it's one thing to have a strategy, but it's another thing to automate that strategy. So what we're doing right now is a waterfall flash sale. This is the start of week 1. We just launched our Stargate automated experience, which gives you access to utilize our custom automatic trading bots that we built for XRP, XLM, HBAR, Algorand, and a bunch of other altcoins. If you're sick and tired of watching the charts every single day, worrying, stressing, guessing about prices, and if it's going to go up or down, then look no further than this, because this is the holy grail for any crypto holder or trader. So it's right in the name, proof of stake. So they have a stake in the network because they own the coin. So the thought is, well, why would this person act maliciously to this network and this coin if they own it? So in order to validate transactions for proof of stake consensus mechanisms, you have validators lock or stake their coins. And those staked coins are selected based on their staking power on the network, and meaning everybody can have a chance of validating transactions and receiving rewards for it. So it's just based on how much crypto you own. So the more crypto that you have staked, the likelier you are to have your stake selected as a way of validating a transaction and getting rewarded from it. So it just means that the more crypto you have staked, the more the validation of your vote will increase. It's just like kind of owning a stock. The more stock or shares you have of a company, the more your vote has influence. Same type of thing. And then proof of work, it's right in the name too. You have these digital miners working towards completing these puzzles, which solve the puzzles, and then they get rewarded for their proof of work. Then you have proof of history. It's a newer one. Proof of history aims to ease the load of network nodes by processing the block while providing the means of coding time itself onto the blockchain. So we're not going to dive into proof of history that deep. Honestly, it is very technical. Consensus mechanisms, understanding them, how they operate to a T. It's not something that you necessarily have to be an expert on, but just being aware of proof of stake, proof of work, their benefits, their cons, and which coins actually have the proof of stake or the proof of work mechanism or a different mechanism. That's all you need to know. Just be aware that proof of work is very energy intensive. It takes a longer time for transactions to get validated because remember the blockchain trilemma? You remember it. So scalability, security, and decentralization. So with proof of work coins, they're very strong with decentralization, and they're very strong with security. But as far as scalability and the transaction throughput, how many transactions you can do per second and how long it takes for a transaction to go through, garbage, not so good. So that's why we can take that into account, that if we were looking at a cryptocurrency that was aiming to solve the way money moves today and make that process more efficient and faster, if that coin has a proof of work consensus mechanism, I don't know how they would achieve that. That's why understanding proof of work, proof of stake, the pros and cons. If proof of work is not as good with scalability, but it's good with security and decentralization, maybe if you had a product or a service that aligned with those values, then you would build your coin on proof of work, or you'd invest into a coin on proof of work. If you're looking for coins that we went through in the last videos that are going to be used in enterprise use, then you might be looking at permission networks. And I believe we dive into that in the next video. But that's why consensus mechanisms, very technical, very complex in senses, but at the same time, just being aware of them and just understanding the pros and the cons, you'll be all set with that. And then understanding what a blockchain or a crypto is trying to solve, and then seeing what their consensus mechanism is, and then just checking real quick, hey, does this consensus mechanism allow scalable transactions, or is it decentralized? And then pairing that together to see if that would even work with the consensus mechanism. And now you can make better decisions when it comes to investing in a cryptocurrency or not. Oh, and then there's one other consensus mechanism that is very important because it ties back to the Byzantine Agreement. So remember the Byzantine Agreement? We have a consensus mechanism that's fairly new, but it's increasing a lot with a lot of people using it, experimenting with it, gaining a lot of traction. Federated Byzantine Agreement, FBA consensus mechanism, game changer consensus mechanism. It is super fast. It's what Stellar Lumens use. I believe Ripple's XRP as well. And Federated Byzantine Agreement is seeking out to solve that Byzantine problem. It's right in the name. So they're trying to achieve and overcome the blockchain trilemma problem. So let's dive into it real quick. As blockchain technology gains traction, developers are increasingly tweaking and experimenting with consensus mechanisms. So the most traditional way to reach consensus is via a Byzantine agreement, a foundational concept in blockchain technology. So nodes on a blockchain validate blocks of data by reaching consensus on the solution to get to a given problem. A Byzantine agreement is reached when a certain minimum number of nodes agrees that the solution presented is correct, therefore validating a block and allowing its inclusion on the blockchain. But what's a Federated Byzantine Agreement? So the Ripple blockchain pioneered the Federated Byzantine Agreement consensus mechanism, and the Stellar blockchain refined this approach even further, adopting the first provably safe FBA protocol. Guys, in FBA systems, each node does not have to be known and verified ahead of time. Membership is open and control is decentralized. Nodes can choose whom they trust. System-wide quorums emerge from decisions made by individual nodes. They're solving the blockchain trilemma. So they're making it decentralized. They're making it scalable. They're making it secure. So it's exactly what you want to see. And the problem that the ancient problem that we learned about, the Byzantine problem, is now being solved as we speak, years later, thousands of years later. So that is it, guys, for consensus mechanisms. I'll see you in the next video.
Are you sick and tired of just stressing and guessing, holding and hoping, and watching the crypto market go through its ups and downs and not doing anything about it? If you're someone in that position, then look no further than the Stargate automated experience. We just launched it and we built custom automated trading bots for XRP, XLM, HBAR, and a bunch of other utility coins. If that sounds of interest to you and you want to learn more, click the video below and I'll see you over there.